welcome back to the Ben Zion podcast. I'm not going to talk too much because I'm going to read a whole audiobook. I'm just putting a little bumper on here so that the beginning won't get cut off, and also so that anybody who wants to join in and comment in real time, negative or positive, I won't see it till the end, but it would be most appreciated. You can do that, of course, after this is uploaded as well. How to use AI to build communism in your lifetime. Because if we don't, humans will soon become extinct. Forward. As I once said to a noted transhumanist who I have since fallen out with, if anything, I consider myself both a transhumanist and a critic of transhumanism. I believe anyone working to develop such volatile, nearly alien ideas should expect no less from themselves. As we stand at the cusp of a new technological age, we face a momentous choice about our collective future. Emerging capabilities in spheres like artificial intelligence, automation, bioengineering promise to radically transform society. Yet in the absence of structural reforms, these technologies threaten to further exacerbate economic inequality and consolidate power in the hands of a corporate technocratic elite. To avoid this dystopian scenario and steer innovation towards emancipatory ends, we must resuscitate the revolutionary socialist, quote, specter. This means reinvigorating Marxist theory of revolutionary change while analyzing contemporary technological and economic conditions through praxis, linking critique to action, new systems of governance, participatory planning, and ownership can redefine the social relations undergirding production. In this pamphlet, I apply a Marxist lens to examine the development of technology under capitalism. Across the historical epochs analyzed, a new recurring pattern emerges, technological innovations becoming co-opted to serve the accumulation imperative and strengthen the rule of capital. Temporary gains for ordinary people soon reach their limits, and reversal ensues. We see this dynamic vividly in the present as digital platforms, automated systems, and AI consolidate power in Silicon Valley boardrooms. The tech industry exemplifies the winner-take-all market dynamics that funnel wealth upwards. Its rhetoric about changing the world provides ideological cover for the not merely cruel or damaging, but ultimately ecocidal self-interest. In response, an embryonic coalition of data workers, gig drivers, socialists, unions, and open-source activists has emerged to resist techno-capitalism. Thinkers like activist Andrew Feenberg call for a deep democratization of technology through new participatory institutions and reforms to align innovation with social needs. Platform cooperatives that share ownership in governments are pioneering in this regard. However, legal and financial structures continue to embed capitalist social relations. For some left liberal accelerationists like Nick Snersick and Alex Williams, this necessitates a post-work, post-scarcity transition in which automation generates radical abundance, facilitating a break from wage labor. Yet absent structural transformation, job loss under neoliberalism leads to austerity, not automated luxury communism. Reclaiming technology for emancipatory ends ultimately requires building counterpower to challenge the prerogatives of capital. As Marxist theorist Walter Benjamin contended, capitalism's endless drive for technological advancement correspondingly, quote, supplies the technology and resources for revolution and destruction, unquote. The weapons of automated systems, platform monopolies, and AI engines can be repurposed for liberation. This underscores the need for mass organization outside traditional channels. The conditions and capabilities engendered by the latest technological shifts can equip a new wave of network social movements. These movements must advance an integrated political vision spanning electoral campaigns, labor organizing, cooperative development, local civic bodies, digital activism, and protest mobilization. The aim is to foster what Eric Olin Wright calls, quote, eroding capitalism, steadily expanding emancipatory models while weakening capitalist hegemony across interconnected domains. This prefigures the horizon of post-capitalism, oriented toward meeting all people's basic needs and enabling their full participation in innovation decisions and value creation. Technology alone does not determine society's possibilities. Collective action and ideology ultimately shape the scope for transformative change. As we stand at a pivotal juncture, one requiring courageous debate about possible futures. Through joining theory and action, we can yet forge technologies serving shared abundance over private wealth. But the window of time is narrowing. The struggle must intensify now to redeem technologies promised before the dystopian terminal point. There's a photograph of myself um, in the form of graffiti that says the singularity is nigh. In this work, a lone voice resonates in the vast wilderness of technological discourse, the voice of Yohanan Ben Zion. A hopeful shaper of things to come, Ben Zion emerges as a poignant figure, advocating for a vision both upright and righteous, the promise of technocommunism. Technocommunism represents a concept of levering automation and advanced computing innovation to eradicate poverty and meet all human needs sustainably with production and distributed networks held in common under democratic control before private wealth leads to human extinction. Technocommunism represents Ben Zion's clarion call for collective action to resolve the contradictions of technological advancement under capitalism. As they survey the contemporary terrain, they see peril in the relentless pace of innovation driven solely by profit. Without a corresponding transformation in underlying social relations, accelerating technological change serves to consolidate corporate power and wealth, displace labor, and drive environmental destruction. The resulting convergence of crises across economic, political, and ecological spheres threatens catastrophe on an unprecedented scale. Hence the pressing need for radical solutions, with technology repurposed to serve egalitarian ends. This, for Ben Zion, your author, is the essence of technocommunism, leveraging automation and innovation to eradicate poverty and meet all human needs sustainably, with production and distribution networks held in common under democratic control. In the absence of such a transition, capitalist social relations cast long technological shadows. Biotechnology, artificial intelligence, ubiquitous sensors, and analytics, these capabilities promise radical abundance but also enable frightening forms of surveillance capitalism and authoritarian technocracy. For Ben Zion, this dystopian future is fast approaching as Silicon Valley tech empires partner ever more intimately with state power structures. To change course and illuminate an emancipatory path, Ben Zion insists that knowledge must link to action. He draws inspiration from Marxist thinkers who have sought to orient technology toward human flourishing rather than the endless accumulation of capital. This politicized appraisal of technology remains all too rare. Its absence leaves the field open for reactionary ideologies, whether the huckster techno-utopianism of Elon Musk and Ray Kurzweil or the sociopathy of Ayn Rand. In the concluding portions of this work, Ben Zion's voice reaches an urgent pitch. The window for systemic change grows perilously narrow, they warn. Only a massive wave of coordinated organizing across digital and physical domains can now redeem technology's promise and veer away from dystopia. The struggle must intensify without delay as existential threats mount. Time yet remains for a civilization-wide metamorphosis that cements technology as a foundation for shared prosperity. But the clock is ticking ever faster as technological nightmares converge with capitalist realities. This is the source of Ben Zion's anguished plea. Awaken from these capitalist dream worlds spun by Silicon Valley before the coming storms jolt us violently awake. Rally now to the banner of techno-communism. In unity lies our hope. Why Yohanan Ben Zion? It's a question I have fielded countless times when introducing myself. I chose the name years ago in passionate idealism, hoping to redeem and redefine phrases burdened by history. My aim was to gestate a more expansive, emancipatory vision for humanity's future, one transcending tribes and territories. Zion has profound resonances across histories and cultures. To early pilgrim settlers in the Americas, it epitomized dreams of religious refuge and regeneration, a new Jerusalem. As the biblical site of Solomon's Temple, Mount Zion also signifies Judaism's awe and inspirations before divinity. And in the Rastafarian tradition, Zion grows into a metaphor for an African diasporic community delivered out of Babylonian captivity and back to the promised land. What unifies these visions is a yearning for unity, sanctuary, and renewal beyond present travails. Zion beckons as a horizon of hope sustained through suffering and struggle. It orients the path of exodus for those seeking freedom from bondage, a universal motif animating progressive movements across space and time. But Zionism as a modern political ideology besmirched this metaphoric power. In molding an exclusively lighter skinned Jewish state, the Zionist movement came to embody nationalistic chauvinism, colonial displacement, and apartheid. Political Zionism etched artificial borders, scattered families, razed villages, and littered the region with trauma's wreckage. It proclaimed, quote, a land without a people for a people without land, unquote, but it denied the vibrant community already inhabiting Palestine, fostering enduring conflict. I chose my name in youthful defiance of such noxious appropriation. By reformulating Zionism as technocommunism, I hope to reclaim an expansive utopianism open to all peoples. My goal is to inspire transformation of underlying social structures that impede universal rights and dignity. By envisaging radical change, I believe seeds of unity could blossom forth to displace ideologies of artificial division. Technology sits at the crux of this vision. Our tools hold power reflecting the consciousness of their creators. Shaping technology today requires grappling with capitalist drives to commodify data, automate drudgery, and design seductive commercial interfaces indifferent to individuals' holistic welfare. Under such conditions, innovations easily concentrate wealth rather than serving communities. Techno-communism offers an alternate heading, realigning innovation to dissolve unjust disparities in knowledge and control. With technology held in common and directed towards solving real human needs, new horizons emerge. Utopic longings suppressed by daily indignities reawaken. Science fiction dreams become infrastructure. Dreams of abundant energy, stable climate, creative work, deep leisure, AI assistance. My goal through such speculations was to inspire a new generation to see technology as a conduit for positive social change. First speaking of these things when I thought something like AI assistance would be a luxury of my later life, yet it is here. Silicon Valley's insular engineering mindset too often ignores the societal implications of its applications while claiming to change the world. Technologists must acknowledge their ethical responsibilities and build new participatory forums facilitating open debate about long-term impacts. No single group can direct the technological journey alone, and Western technocrats not chastened by a deep Marxian understanding of collectivism or empathy for marginalized groups do so at their peril. I realize now my original name choice risked entrenching the very societal divisions I aim to eradicate. By defining myself oppositionally as a, quote, Zion, I subtly and perhaps not so subtly at times alienated potential allies. Building unity requires meeting people where they are, plainly speaking truth simply, and aligning interests through class solidarity. Marx remains foundational here. Still, I maintain that recasting technology's promise in emancipatory terms is essential today. We inhabit what Friedrich Jameson called the dingy utopias of the present, stuck amidst deteriorating conditions while denied resources or voice to imagine better realities. Breaking this paralysis and organizing radical hope is pivotal. A name cannot shoulder such weight alone, yet if my words catalyzed even a few fellow sojourners, I fulfilled my purpose. In retrospect, I failed to see some of the phrasing implications and may have overreached in desiring a great destiny. But when systems grow dire beyond measure, even flawed tools must be raised in defiance and fresh concepts forged. This is the essence of eruptive theory ascending from roiling unrest. And such notions and practices I have devoted a good deal of time to studying. My contribution will surely prove one pebble in our wondrous mosaic, but as ever, I aspire to illuminate the path forward. Humbly I cast my fate to the wind and join my comrades in the march forward. And there's another picture. You can look at that from the link. It's campaign related. This technology policy treatise is brought to you by Yohanan Ben Zion and the committee to elect Ben Zion as America's last president in 2024. Believe it or not, superintelligent collectivism is preferable to capitalistic kakistocracy, ruled by the worst. Please take a break with me now from the cool, refreshing drink from a fire hose that is information in the 21st century, where the hum of seeming progress that somehow benefits no one and hastens the death of the planet ignites the ever-buzzing filaments of this global society. Because we are now at a crisis point that these media cannot address, and we can no longer ignore. In the face of unprecedented environmental challenges, the world is careening toward a perilous future, as evidenced by the recent breach of a critical temperature threshold. The scorching reality is that Earth's average temperature soared more than 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, marking a point of no return that demands urgent and radical intervention. The ramifications of this breach extend beyond a mere climate anomaly. It serves as a harbinger of the impending catastrophe that our current socioeconomic systems are ill-equipped to address. The need for a paradigm shift is glaring, and at the heart of this transformation lies a recognition that artificial intelligence can be the linchpin for a humane and sustainable future. A techno-communist vision, one that envisions an AI-run planned economy in every nation, is not a utopian dream but a pragmatic response to the existential threat posed by climate change. The recent spike in global temperatures is not an isolated incident, but a symptom of a planet spiraling into an irreversible state of warming. The urgency of the matter cannot be overstated. However, the path we are currently on indicates that even if countries adhere to their emission reduction pledges, the world is hurtling toward a catastrophic 2.5 to 2.9 degrees Celsius of warming this century. Enter technocommunism, an ideology that posits AI as a catalyst for orchestrating a planned economy that is not only more efficient but also ecologically responsible. The power of AI lies in the ability to process vast amounts of data and optimize resource allocation, a capacity sorely lacking in our current market-driven systems. The central tenet of technocommunism is to harness AI to guide us toward a sustainable and humane world. It's imperative to understand that AI is not just a technological marvel, but the most potent tool in human history, capable of steering us away from the precipice of environmental catastrophe. By entrusting AI, controlled by ordinary working people, with the intricate task of economic planning, we can mitigate the adverse effects of climate change and forge a future where the temperature breach of 2 degrees Celsius is a distant memory. The urgency of embracing technocommunism becomes even more apparent when considering the potential ramifications of surpassing the 2-degree mark. Every fraction of a degree increase exacerbates the risk of deadly extreme weather events, imperils vulnerable populations, and accelerates the irreversible collapse of ecosystems. The recent wildfires in Hawaii, floods in northern Africa, and storms in the Mediterranean are ominous signs that the climate crisis is not a distant threat, but a current reality. Critics may dismiss the notion of technocommunism as utopian or impractical, revealing nothing but their own elitism and lack of a will to live. But the reality is that the status quo is untenable. Reports indicate that current climate plans put planet heating pollution in 2030 at a staggering 9% higher than 2010 levels, a stark deviation from the 45% reduction recommended by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. The world is also on track to exceed the fossil fuel production limit needed to cap warming at 1.5 degrees Celsius. In the face of these grim realities, embracing technocommunism is not a choice but a necessity. It is a call to recognize the transformative power of AI in reshaping our economic systems to be in harmony with the planet. Without a paradigm shift toward technocommunism, we risk consigning future generations to an inhospitable and ecologically devastated world, if they even exist at all. The recent breach of a 2-degree threshold is not merely a warning. It is a mandate for change. The question is whether we will heed this call and embark on a path that leverages the unparalleled capabilities of AI to construct a techno-communist future, a future where equality and universal economic prosperity are synonymous with ecological sustainability, and the specter of catastrophic climate change is relegated to the annals of history. There's another campaign photograph, a poster. These further pages introduce us to the challenging undertaking of artificial intelligent development as the one weapon in our arsenal powerful enough to reverse capitalism's climate apocalypse and build a humane socialist economy. As we will further elaborate on these as it relates to the next forms of our economic systems beyond mere 20th century socialism and its world-changing impacts on our journey towards superintelligent collectivism, because our only humane sustainable option on a planet seriously threatened by a climate apocalypse is to begin in every land to immediately embark from capitalist to socialist and onward to communist modes of production, without which we will surely perish in a few years without those much needed real and immediate changes. In these pages, we will dive into what computer intelligence is and how it operates as it relates to this vision of not only extant, that's to say not extinct, but significantly uplifted communities. So let us now explore this tricky world of how computers will help us work together so much better, and how this collectively intelligent set of systems can be arranged and planned for, and how they will affect our need to build a better community together. As we go forward on this digital journey, we will encounter difficult landscape, complex challenges that cast dark shadows over the road to that future where technology truly serves the greater good. We'll navigate through the diverse landscape of economic disparities, the dark, unblinking eye of surveillance states, and the disconcerting reality of AI development that prioritizes corporate interests over societal well-being. Our goal is to understand the potential pitfalls of AI and explore ways to steer its development towards superintelligent collectivism, a vision of a better, more inclusive future for all. In order to understand how we have come to the point of a climate apocalypse under capitalism, we need to face the stark reality of its environmental devastation and economic inequality, the rampant forces that splinter societies into fragments of privilege and deprivation. Our journey is fueled by the vision of and need for superintelligent collectivism, a world where the benefits of technological progress are shared equitably. However, the current trajectory starkly contrasts this vision, as a widening chasm between the haves and the have-nots serves as a glaring testament to the perversion of technological advancement in the hands of a select few, who are mostly of European descent. We will grapple with these challenges and explore how we can reshape the development of AI to align with our shared aspirations for a better future. But to do so, we must shift our gaze to the omnipresent surveillance apparatus most prevalent in the U.S. and Western world, despite what you may have heard in the U.S. quote news about China. It is here that the intricate network of fascistic digital eyes scrutinizes every facet of our lives in the name of supposed security and efficiency. This is the security of those select few at the expense of yourself, all of you who are not independently wealthy. This surveillance state encroaches upon the very fabric of privacy, raising profound questions about the ethical boundaries that AI development must navigate. As we dissect the implications of such constant surveillance from the elites, the specter of a society where privacy becomes a relic of the past for working people looms large. We will explore the challenges posed by this juggernaut of technological power and consider how we can steer AI toward a future that respects our fundamental right to privacy. And as we delve further still into our conversation about a truly livable world, we will turn our attention to the short-sighted development of artificial intelligence, a set of projects currently fixated on serving the interests of corporations, private wealth at the expense of not just ordinary people, but survival itself. Well, we live in a society, do we not? Can we not come together to better use such powers to overcome such great dangers? Yet as it stands, the machinery of progress, once hailed as a potential liberator, has become only an enforcer of mindlessly ecocidal corporate agendas. The algorithms that shape our digital existence are overwhelmingly designed not for the enhancement of human well-being, but for the augmentation of profit margins. We will explore the consequences of this misaligned development and consider how we can redirect AI toward a future that prioritizes the needs and aspirations of all members of society. But be prepared, as that society protected from this danger requires that we are all willing to fight for a humane and sustainable economic system, which in this era of superintelligence could easily be run without those corporations or other corrupting influences of wealth. In the midst of this labyrinth of challenges, the realization of superintelligent collectivism, and none other, must emerge as our sole beacon of hope. This is more than just an abstract idea. It needs to become a vociferous rallying cry from every street corner to confront the status quo and reimagine the arc of our technological evolution. I call upon you to join me now in visualizing an alternative path, one focused on collective liberation and the emancipation of the masses from the chains of inequality and the ravages of environmental collapse. Throughout this journey, we will unravel the threads of economic disparities, surveillance, and corporate-driven AI development. This work serves as both an analysis of the current landscape and a 21st century manifesto for change, shining a light on the urgent need for a paradigm shift. As we navigate the complexities of our present reality, we will explore the obstacles that stand between us and the promise of a future where technology serves a common good. If we are to avoid our species' demise, the call to action must reverberate louder than ever in history. The challenges we face are almost more than what we can conceive, but so too is the power of our potential to bring about transformative change, veritably inconceivable in a world where we are aided by robust digital minds and far more connected to one another in the process. The road to the needed realization of superintelligent collectivism requires us to collectively rethink our relationship with technology, to intentionally steer AI toward a path that fosters human flourishing. Our journey toward finding solutions begins here with a simple conversation as we delve into the many shades of the contemporary economic status quo, for no situation is truly separate from the present or material conditions, and shed light on the obstacles that demand our united focus and action. The imperative must be for a profound paradigm shift now, because at the time of this writing in late 2023, it is well understood by all serious climate scientists and most of humanity, if they're being honest with themselves, that if we do not seriously alter course by 2028, a climate crisis death spiral will cause humankind to be no more. So this book, which serves as both an outline for superintelligent collectivism and a call to action, delves into the need for Marxian thought applied to today's technologies, which really most essentially requires a dedication on your part to ending inequality and unsustainability. Let this be with the understanding that this action must be at the forefront of our endeavors to navigate the complexities and transform, most importantly, artificial intelligence, but also broader technological developments and industrial outputs. The call for communalist thought and action toward building a resilient superintelligent economic system is not about nostalgically looking back at an ideological past. Far from it. It is about pragmatically addressing the demands of the present. It is about finding a way to navigate the complexities of our current system and steer the course of AI toward a future where humanity thrives collectively without want, hardship, or violence. In a nutshell, it is about reimagining our relationship with technology and forging new paths that prioritize the well-being of all members of society. This fundamentally requires little more of you than an open mind. Now, there is another picture which I will read the text from. It says, why should you fight for technocommunism today? Point 1, to use emerging technology to start a people's revolution against the capitalist ruling elites who are killing the planet. Point 2, reorganize the economy using more advanced systems based on those new technologies. Point 3, witness the withering away of class distinction in this techno-socialist society. Point 4, in its absence, remove all government oversights, allowing the advanced algorithms to do their job as humanity enters this golden age of techno-communism. Continuing to the next section. To understand our soon-to-be more resilient communalist superintelligent economic system, we must always remember that the widening gap between the privileged few and the disenfranchised masses is not a natural or happy byproduct of technological progress. It is a symptom of a terminally flawed system that prioritizes profit over people. Here, the resonance of Marxist thought becomes unmistakable, calling attention to the inherent contradictions of capitalism and the urgent need for an alternative framework. And you cannot flinch from the need for these lines of thought or the actions that result from them. Although the ruling elites who have largely determined so much of your life thus far have and will continue to throw not only almost endless propaganda at you, but make your life decidedly less livable so that you will not have the time or energy to pay heed to these matters. But pay heed you must, for again, the alternative to this action is the extinction of all human life in a few short decades. In surveying economic systems and the omnipresent force of the surveillance state, Marxist thinking emerges as a powerful lens through which we can unravel the roots of contemporary disparities and existential risks. At its core, Marxist thought scrutinizes the mechanisms that drive economic structures, providing critical insights into the relentless pursuit of capital accumulation inherent in capitalist economies. This pursuit, a defining feature of today's Western-dominated economic landscape, amplifies social inequalities, constructing a world where the fruits of progress disproportionately favor the elites. The need for a radical reevaluation of the systems guiding artificial intelligent development becomes evident within the framework of Marxist critique. As we witness the increasing influence of AI on the various aspects of our lives, from employment to social interactions, it is imperative to not only question the structures that underpin its development, but to demand that we do more with these emerging digital minds, that we use them to build a more realized society than was previously possible, an outcome which will remain an impossibility under capitalism, despite what capitalist technophiles and the ruling elites they serve would have you believe. Marxist thought challenges us to examine how the current trajectory of AI, more or less solely dictated by profit motives, not only worsens existing disparities and further entrenches power imbalances, but hastens the demise of our ecological systems. Moving deeper into our exploration, we come back to the Western surveillance state, a pervasive entity in the digital age. Here, Marxist thought provides a handy toolkit for deconstructing the ideological underpinnings of surveillance. In the realm of Marxist analysis, ideology is not merely a set of tools, but a force that shapes the societal structure and builds better institutions. As we navigate this world where privacy has become a commodity and oppressive surveillance has been normalized, Marxist insights prompt us to question not only the technological infrastructure, but also the ideologies that legitimize its existence. The very fabric of surveillance is interwoven with ideologies that justify its intrusion into our lives, an intrusion that only serves the very wealthy. Marxist thinking encourages us to peel back the layers, unveiling the ideological narratives that underpin surveillance practices. It challenges the notion that surveillance is solely about security and prompts us to consider the economic and political interests that drive its expansion, those of the elites. By applying this thinking, we dissect ideological frameworks that enable the surveillance state to persist, allowing for a nuanced understanding beyond the surface level justifications. Furthermore, the superintelligent communist ideas of this book demand that you examine the societal impacts of pervasive surveillance. It prompts critical questions about who benefits and who bears the brunt of constant monitoring. Does surveillance primarily serve the common good, or does it disproportionately empower certain groups while marginalizing others? These questions extend beyond the technological specifications of surveillance state, delving into a deeper social and economic implication that Marxist thought encourages us to explore. In essence, the utilization of collective superintelligence in our development of more suitable economic systems and a less onerous surveillance state is a call for a more profound interrogation of the status quo. It challenges us to move beyond surface level analyses and consider the underlying structures and ideologies that shape our world. And lest you think that task could bear you no fruit, consider that you are one of billions on Earth today who are quite concerned about capitalism's climate apocalypse, and that our collective understanding and the actions to follow are the only thing that can stop these horrors. So as we navigate these complexities in contemporary Western technocracy, collectivist superintelligence insights become invaluable tools for fostering a critical understanding of the forces at play, and more importantly, for envisioning alternative paths and walking there together toward a more equitable, just, and livable future. In the world of artificial intelligence, a field that more and more is coming to be understood for what it is, by far the most powerful tool ever to be made, for ill or good, in all of history. But today, as we have seen, the exploitation embedded within the development of AI has revealed that the algorithms permeating our digital existence are far from neutral. They are, in fact, shaped by the interests of capital. This is the resource of the capitalist technophiles' this is the source of the capitalist technophiles' two most common but seemingly opposing refrains, often uttered by the same capitalists one day to switch back to the other the next. Quote, superintelligence is an existential risk beyond any other. It is not so under socialism, only under capitalism. Quote, superintelligence will give capitalism the tools it needs to correct its course that it has thus lacked. It is far more likely to hasten extinction than do this, as previous automations of capitalist production have done. A call for socialism guided by more advanced algorithms and human interconnectivity is the answer to these misguided and largely bad faith utterances, and it must be heard by all. So simply in your engaging with these ideas, discussions, and actions, you can contribute considerably to a future where AI becomes not, quote, X risk, but a force for positive change beyond anything previously seen in human affairs, and shaped by the ideals of superintelligent collectivism and the sound principles of Marxian thought, which remain fundamentally unaltered from years past, but must necessarily be reshaped to fit new technologies and social transformations as described here in Superintelligent Collectivism. At the core of Marx's critique lies a profound recognition that capitalism inherently breeds inequalities and, yes, X risks. The wealth generated by the labor of the many is disproportionately funneled to benefit the few, resulting in a stratified society where power and privilege converge at the summit, while the masses toil in the unlivable valleys below. The first socialist state, the Soviet Union, would well have prospered even unto today, had it not been invaded by US-led Western imperial forces just 1 year after it was founded, and similarly assaulted, sabotaged, and undermined for all the years between, until it was illegally disbanded in 1991 by the agents of those same US imperial saboteurs. However, it might have been hardy enough even to withstand such dastardly elitist violence if it had had this one thing: superintelligent collectivist institutions, things that are now coming into our possession. Many Marxists, I would say most, like most Westerners, generally like to talk of the palace intrigues of the Soviet Union, and hundreds of excellent books have been written on the subject, which I highly recommend. Please email me at the link in the Ben Zion Underground photo, and I will send you a few audiobook links to some of them. But this talk, particularly coming from Westerners and Marxists living in the West, amounts to a lot of blaming the victim, fixating on some Soviet personality or other, or their perceived failures, and not daily emphasizing that this amazing first socialist country would still exist, were it not for the overwhelming violence and sabotage unleashed on it by the US and its fascistic Western allies. This warning should be doubly heeded as you consider the fate of the socialist nations which still exist to this day. If you have a quarrel with them, keep it to yourself. If you genuinely wish to do right in that area, instead focus your energies on bringing those fascistic Western regimes, most notably the United States, to an end. That is, if you truly wish to see the so-called actually existing socialist states, quote, do better, and if you live in the imperial core, most particularly the United States, and insist on continuing to do this, hiding behind a stated desire to give honest criticism and the like, I believe it is fair for the truly revolution-minded to assume that you are working, either in an official capacity or, quote, pro bono, for those fascistic regimes. If your instinct is to say to all this, perhaps, but, insert CIA talking point here, consider this. Which single army in world history suffered the greatest loss of life in a war? It was the Soviet Union that in doing so basically single-handedly defeated the German National Socialists. And that colossal loss of life was almost completely unnecessary. The Soviet Union's, quote, allies, the United States' finest socialist, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who had far more in common in policy terms with Mussolini than any truly socialistic figure, and Winston Churchill, one of history's most prodigious mass murderers, represented the then crypto-fascist Western powers, and conspired to murder those 28 million workers to weaken its pro-worker Soviet enemy in the fight against the fascist Germans, quote, only defined as fascist because of its aggression against these other fascists. So I beg of you, the next time you are inclined to reply perhaps but, and then regurgitate something that has been forced into your mind from the CIA talking points teleprompter, first stop, count to 10, and attempt to list these and the 1,000 other ways that your westernized understanding of history and world affairs is a web of elitist lies and falsehoods. These are not merely differences of opinion. These are the lies that are leading to the elimination of human beings from this planet. An event at which point there will no longer be an objective reality, not for the reasons capitalists cynically manipulate you with that idea, but simply because at our extinction it will be as if none of human endeavor had ever been undertaken at all. No one of us can possibly be very revolutionary minded if we fail to truly recognize who our enemies are, and the fascistic United States, as the main organizer of both 20th and 21st century global anti-communist actions, and the resulting climate death spiral that is so much the focus of this pamphlet, is a friend to none, living or dead, and an enemy to all. Superintelligence of the kind that could plan and run entire boroughs, doing far, far more with far, far less, so that housing authorities providing shelter to all of the millions of unhoused in the Western world, public health services meeting the unmet medical needs of the same, food supply, energy, and utility necessaries could all be met with relatively little outlay, is already being built. That these kinds of technologies are today being used instead for warfare, surveillance of the working class, and superfluous and mostly laughable consumer product lines is nothing short of the vilest thefts from you. A theft that reflects, quote, social murder, the genocidal intent and result of the capitalist administrators failing to provide the above-mentioned necessaries to all, and feigning an inability to prevent those deaths and degradations. This was a universally preventable problem by 20th century standards, if elitists had not ruled the roost. But as their, quote, success has led to capitalism's climate apocalypse, it is no longer so much only a major problem as the grandest, most sadistic farce, a universal genocide that the elites are forcing upon you and me and everyone else, themselves included. Superintelligent collectivism could not be more of a necessity than it is now in this global kakistocracy, a society governed by its least competent citizens, capitalists. And there's a piece of art. Superintelligent collectivism further empowers you in challenging the prevailing elitist narratives to envision and manifest a society where power is truly decentralized in your lifetime, a 21st century standard of communism, rather than merely 20th century standards of socialist central planning to reduce harm. And so the fruits of providence will be enjoyed by the many, not just the few, and never again to falter or fail for anyone under the supervisions of these more advanced computing systems with beyond human level capabilities and their cross-bureau integration. The commodification of AI and all industry now linked to it, divorced from its potential to serve the common good, transforms this unique sector and all others into tools of not just exploitation, but again, the universal genocide forced upon all of us by those least competent humans ever to walk the earth, Americans. And what, absent the transmogrifying outcomes outlined by Marxist perspectives on AI's potential through superintelligent collectivism, that you must demand to avoid the universal genocide, will capitalists build in its stead? Here we are confronted with another ominous specter of techno-fascist accelerationism, leading to an also practically omnipotent neo-reactionary superintelligence that has been quietly emanating from Silicon Valley for decades. As you now know, Marxism, rooted in its dedication to collective emancipation and societal change, provides a counterbalance to prevailing narratives and institutions that, in their absence, prioritize individual gain and corporate interests. The United States, the country where I live, and now the longtime ringleader of global anti-communism and perpetrator of similarly inhumane domestic economic policies, once had, in the wake of social programs themselves implemented to prevent a socialist revolution from occurring, the so-called New Deal, nearly the highest life expectancy in the world. Now, because it no longer fears such revolutions, it has weakened or demolished those programs and failed to build others where some other nations have. And so it is ranked 50th in life expectancy. Just in the years since the coronavirus pandemic, so poorly handled as it could not have been, again, but intentional social murders, and with its exclusive focus on the band-aid that is vaccines over other more comprehensive public health pushes and preventative measures, the USA's life expectancy has fallen below that of Cuba, a country that has suffered immensely under a 62-year blockade for the crime of wanting to have a humane and sustainable economic system in their own country, and suffered a significant loss of life after the US-led sabotage of the Soviet Union, who had provided its substantial aid in that enforced absence of trading partners. This is a country with a per capita income that is 1/10 that of the United States. There's another photograph. The psychopathy of Silicon Valley power players is not represented better by any personality than Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is not the benevolent visionary he and many techies see him as, but a key architect of the dystopian United States techno-fascist future. His alignment with right-wing accelerationism embodies this hellscape, with him rising nearly to the role of, quote, techno-fascist God Emperor. This section of the work delves into the perils of Thiel's techno-fascist vision, not because he is himself a godlike technologist, but because his lunacy is really no great departure from the worldview of almost all Western technologists and technophiles. This creeping techno-fascism's potential ramifications on climate collapse and the imperative for a popular movement to counterbalance it, the focus of this work, must be built to pave the way for a genuine Marxist tech acceleration and AI takeoff, and not runaway inequality. At the core of Thiel's ideological framework lies an unsettling synergy between accelerationism and a technologically dominated authoritarian regime. The vision of this techno-fascist God Emperor alludes to a future where technological prowess consolidates power into the hands of a few ruling elites, resulting in a dystopian society marked by an even more authoritarian control, social stratification, and ecological peril than the United States already faces and forces upon the world. Unlike the slightly more optimistic views painted by some accelerationists, envisioning capitalism's, quote, natural evolution towards some vague egalitarian outcome, Thiel's work openly pushes for the absolute domination of private wealth, the path we are already on, and one which will only serve to hasten climate collapse. His techno-fascist aspirations, anchored in a techno-monarchist society governed by CEOs, for example, he, among other similarly psychopathic ruling elites, prevailed upon President Obama to marshal support for Joseph Biden within the Democratic establishment in 2020, when Senator Bernard Sanders had won some primary elections and threatened to become an unstoppable frontrunner. Um, we must not only raise all this must not only raise red flags regarding environmental sustainability, but be seen as a retelling of another far-right neoliberal narrative, that of the lie of trickle-down economics. Thiel, like basically all of U.S. and Western techies, advances this barbaric neoliberal lie and the mandate for social murder that it represents by sugarcoating the otherwise increasingly bitter pill of trickle-down economics to a skeptical and increasingly impoverished public with a lot of clever sounding but basically unmeaningful technobabble. This damning description essentially captures the work of all of what Google whistleblower Timnit Gebru calls TESCREAL. These groups, transhumanism, extropianism, singularitarianism, cosmism, rationalism, effective altruism, and long-termism, what that acronym stands for, none of these movements are anything close to activists. They are all to slightly varying degrees, manufacturing a new type of consent for this ecocidal status quo dominated by private wealth. So the United States' unbridled pursuit of technological advancement, divorced from all kinds of worker protections, much less a people's government, will also continue worsening ecological considerations. This all will have no other effect than to exacerbate the already precarious state of human affairs, our very survival sacrificed to capital. In confronting the techno-fascist trajectory, it is imperative to scrutinize the potential consequences for the majority of U.S. people and humankind. Thiel's vision, while appealing to those bootlicking techies and the ruling elites they grovel before, sets the stage for a heightened socioeconomic disparity and environmental degradation. This stumbling of the United States toward a techno-fascist God-emperor role demands a collective response grounded in popular movements, ideologies, and direct action. The need for a counterbalance must be our rallying cry against this near-term impending techno-feudal order. A popular movement rooted in Marxist principles can be the only bulwark against the consolidation of power in the hands of this quite vast technological aristocracy represented by the sneering pseudo-intellect and machinations of Peter Thiel. The construction of technocommunism by building collective superintelligence in contrast can and will meet the needs of technological progress and AI acceleration. And it is the only antidote to this impending neo-monarchical hell world. Raising consciousness and direct actions are the only real ingredients to this antidote. All of the technology is incidental to the need for a humane and sustainable economic system. So it is not nearly enough to critique Thiel's vision, to critique Thiel's influence, psychopathic as it is, or that of the tech-obsessive toadies he steers and the vile ruling elites he represents. A far more proactive stance is needed. Mobilizing against this growing techno-fascism requires a multifaceted approach that combines grassroots movements, materialist clarity, and a commitment to shaping a future that prioritizes the collective good over the mad dreams of a privileged few. So as we stare out at the stark horizon of a world increasingly aligned with Thiel's techno-fascist vision, the work before us must be quite clear. A popular movement must rise to challenge that emerging technological dystopia. By aligning with Marxist principles, embracing technological progress for the collective good, and engaging in direct action, there exists a very real path to collective superintelligence that circumvents this cruel monarchical superintelligence, and our Marxist tech accelerationist and AI takeoffs must articulate that difference and share the star warning with all, for only that can truly serve the interests of the many, not the few, and steer us from the climate death spiral that looms so very large on the horizon. And there's another photo. Quote, I've never really understood exactly what a liberal is, since I have heard liberals express every conceivable opinion on every conceivable subject. As far as I can tell, you have the extreme right, who are fascist, racist, capitalist dogs, like Ronald Reagan, who come right out and let you know where they're coming from. And on the opposite end, you have the left, who are supposed to be committed to justice, equality, and human rights. And somewhere between these 2 points is the liberal. As far as I'm concerned, liberal is the most meaningless word in the dictionary. History has shown me that as long as some middle class white people can live high on the hog, take vacations to Europe, send their children to private school, and reap the benefits of their white skin privilege, then they are, quote, liberal. But when times get hard and money gets tight, you pull off that liberal mask and you think you're talking to Adolf Hitler. They feel sorry for the so-called underprivileged just as long as they can maintain their own privileges, quote, end quote, Asada Shakur. I have also struggled to understand what this word means. I do not believe, nor do any communists believe, that there are conservatives in stark contrast to liberals, but rather varying shades of ecocidal capitalists doing much the same work. However, if there is a way of making sense of this non-word, it is through the analogs of colonialism and neocolonialism. Before the, quote, decolonization of Asia and Africa following the second inter-imperialist, quote, World War, roughly 1945 to 1960, a ham-fisted half measure if ever there was one, the word liberal was of course already in widespread use. But I think that it is fair to say that there were no real European or European American liberals as a class, then here in the imperial core, only conservatives, settler colonial ideologues, boosters of chattel slavery and genocide. Then quite suddenly the more dulcet tones of mass media and the ordering of nation states changed, and you couldn't be as open about the genocidal acts you and your government did. The stories of the collapse of the Ku Klux Klan as the United States' most popular civic group around this time revolve around mass media cutting through the hatred to help to dismantle that organization. But that is a side effect. The cause was this shift to liberalism. But liberalism, instead of openly genocidal water cooler talk from Europeans and European settlers, seems to have served more than anything to pull up the ladder on those fighting for a humane, sustainable economic system in the colonized world, so that those freedom fighters, brown-skinned communists, would-be liberators, or really anyone with a smidgen of that in them, any non-Western who would dare to be even a little pro-worker, they are characterized, lumped together, not as freedom fighters, but as terrorists, inasmuch as they are considered at all. And violence is done to those black and brown bodies by the United States and fascist Western governments on behalf of those only slightly unwitting, quote, liberals. Never forget that the United States, through its terrorist organization, the only real terrorist organization of the 20th century, the Central Intelligence Agency, killed Patrice Lumumba, basically to prevent that decolonization of Africa and the cascading loss of Western mineral assets that would have otherwise taken place. But they didn't just kill Lumumba, or a few thousand potentates and activists here and there. The United States actively murdered about 40 million people in anti-communist wars in this so-called liberal era, the time after that inter-imperialist war. Read Vincent Bevan's The Jakarta Method or Vijay Prasad's The Darker Nations if you want to double-check those receipts. The crypto-fascist United States contributed through ripple effects and the social murders of neocolonialism to many hundreds of millions more dead. These are the basic job descriptions of organizations like the International Monetary Fund, the World Economic Forum, and others like this, to continue the slavery, theft, and murder of the conservative settlers in another more liberal form on behalf of the United States and Western ruling elites. So you, the typical American who discusses reality television starlets around the water cooler and not Lumumba, are not a liberal friend to man. You are a neo-colonial, in some ways doing violence more efficiently than the slave hunters of the 1600s to 1800s who bred 100 generations of bull mastiff dogs who were constantly starved except for when they hunted and feasted on the bodies of natives and Africans. If you do not believe me again in this comparison, I only need to refer to one receipt this time. Of all of the many, many horrors that the conservative colonial world did, it did not bring about the end of the world through ecocide, as the liberal neocolonial one may yet do in your lifetime, or perhaps shortly thereafter. which brings us back to the left liberal accelerationism of the Western capitalist, a purportedly progressive movement seeking rapid societal transformation. It embodies this neo-colonial paradox in its alignment with, quote, transhumanist and seemingly technological determinist narratives while sidelining the foundational capital and labor struggle. Capital versus labor struggle. It's crucial to clarify that in this context, left accelerationism is understood more as a term used by critics to describe what might be better labeled as another flavor of hypercapitalist accelerationism, as essentially the whole range of accelerationist thought, and thus all technology discourse, deviates significantly from the foundational tenets of Marxist thought, the fight for a humane and sustainable economic system. The paradox emerges from the movement's appropriation of essential concepts from Marxist technological determinism without adequately addressing the core dialectic between capital and labor. This peculiar amalgamation of technological progress is perhaps most championed by that arch-fiend hypercapitalist Peter Thiel, steers us all away from the emancipatory goals of Marxism, instead serving the elitist interests inherent in liberal and conservative capitalism. In examining this conundrum, it becomes apparent that the liberal accelerationism, in its pursuit of the post-capital future through rapid technological advancements, fails to prioritize a quintessential struggle embedded in Marxist ideology, the struggle between those who control capital and those who provide the labor, and so does the same thing as a conservative capitalist, kills the planet in your lifetime. But the objective of technological advancement, not as ecocide a war crime, but the equitable redistribution of the benefits arising from such progress is yet possible. As long as you or I or any one of us yet lives, it is a possibility. But we have a window, as mentioned, of 5 years where it remains eminently possible. The appropriation of transhumanist motifs and a techno-deterministic outlook, absent a humane mandate, while seemingly a capitalist class rebirth of utopianism, with its aping of certain aspects of Marxist historical materialism, still lacks and will always lack the necessary emphasis on dismantling oppressive capitalist structures, no matter how many CEOs and bought and paid for fascistic mainstream media shills try to tell you otherwise. Silicon Valley, who are all military contractors really, so what would you expect, has fabricated these movements that have no true commitment to addressing systemic inequalities and restructuring society on more equitable grounds, only sneakily serving capital to the bitter end, the truly bitter end, the grand demise of humankind. So in the course of our staggering historical and technological evolution, we may yet set ourselves on the path to superintelligent collectivism, to technocommunism in your lifetime, that is, before it is too late. As we get further into the subject and those conversations that follow, this much needed tale unfolds, weaving a tapestry that extends beyond the realm of technological innovation and envisions AI as a transformative force unlike any in history. Within this vision, the principles of superintelligent collectivism, or Zionism, take center stage, guiding 21st century humanity toward more compassionate, socially conscious material conditions by the only force that has ever achieved this at any scale, as in the socialist nations, the building of a humane and sustainable economic system. This section advocates for the affirmative case for AI, positing it as a catalyst for evolving class consciousness and enhancing the human experience even far beyond 20th century standards, or if I may be so bold, even beyond our present ability to imagine ourselves. The crux of the argument lies in the necessity for compassionate development, asserting that to unlock the true transformative potential of AI for the greater good, the values of justice, equity, and collective well-being must be woven into its very fabric. Under the auspices of Zionism, our narrative in this work explores the notion that AI, when developed with compassion, can transcend its role as a mere technological tool and become a force for genuine societal evolution at an unprecedented speed. Zionism, deeply rooted in a variety of socialist movements, provides a framework for envisioning a future where the means of production entwined with the algorithms and systems of AI, are utilized to benefit the masses rather than perpetuate existing, terminally destructive United States and Western dominated dynamics of power. In this envisioned future, AI becomes not just a catalyst for technological progress, but a societal shift toward a more egalitarian world. Um, this narrative illuminates the potential of AI to bridge societal gaps, empower marginalized communities, and foster a collective consciousness that transcends traditional class boundaries. It becomes a means to dismantle entrenched power structures and address systemic inequalities, offering a glimpse into the transformative possibilities of technology aligned with Ben Zionist, superintelligent collectivist principles. However, amid this hopeful vision, the narrative confronts a persistent challenge that casts a shadow over the benevolent development of AI, the gravitational pull of military industrial interests. These interests, driven by their own agendas and motivations, seek to harness the immense potential of AI for purposes that often run counter to the principles of Ben Zionism. This chapter must serve as a call to arms for all of us, urging a collective resistance against this creeping techno-fascist gravitational pull, and emphasizing the imperative to ensure that AI remains a tool for the greater good, rather than a pawn in the pursuit of the greater consolidation of private wealth. Um, the problematic nature of U.S. power and the need for global collaboration. As we explore the complexities of this anti-techno-fascist pamphlet, it becomes crucial to examine the problematic nature of U.S. power and the influence of the military-industrial complex. This work necessarily must take a critical stance on the Western hegemony, particularly the dominance of the United States and its military-industrial complex in shaping the trajectory of presently techno-fascist AI development. The global stage is marked by a power dynamic where the influence of the U.S. and its military-industrial complex extends far beyond its borders. This pamphlet, above all else, underscores the challenges posed by this dominance, emphasizing how the agendas of the United States' chief means of wealth generation, its ecocidal war machine, daily prioritize militarization and the undermining of all the less fascistic institutions in the world over the compassionate development of superintelligence for the greater good. So I urge you, come together, make a collective effort to overcome the Western hegemon and build real institutions toward a more inclusive, equitable future. This problematic nature of U.S. power, with its historical association with imperialism and interventionism, is not limited to a difference of opinion, to an inconvenient fact of life, or even to the many genocides it directly causes, but to the ultimate ecocidal genocide, ecological genocide, which will remove our species from history that we now face. There is then an urgent need for a decentralized, yes, but anti-fascist, thus an anti-private wealth approach to AI development, not as a trivial consumer product, but socialist institution, one that prioritizes and dramatically grows the technologically mediated connection of humankind and builds appropriate institutions, and thus ensures that the benefits of technological advancements are shared globally. Our focus can now shift toward a vision where global collaboration, focusing first on the empowerment of marginalized groups, becomes the cornerstone of the development of superintelligent collectivism. The principles of this Ben Zionism extend beyond national borders, advocating for a future where technology serves as a unifying force rather than a tool for fascistic institutions self-perpetuating geopolitical power imbalances until it kills us all in a few short years. The narrative becomes a call to dismantle the U.S.-led military hegemon and establish an inclusive framework for the development and deployment of superintelligent collectivism as governance. As we grapple with the challenges posed by the problematic nature of U.S. power, turn your attention to the potential consequences of unchecked Western influence on what little may truly remain of the future of your increasingly technocratic world. I urgently plead with you to support in word and deed, to fight for a revolutionary recalibration of these terminal power dynamics, envisioning a world where technology is harnessed not for the interests of a few, but for the collective well-being of humanity. This work, most importantly, in must, in short order of all human effort, must stand as nothing less than a historical declaration of the affirmative case for superintelligent collectivism or Zionism. I urge you to envision a future where technology quickly becomes a catalyst for societal evolution, breaking down class boundaries and fostering a collective consciousness and the kind of superintelligent governance that entails in every land. Simultaneously, to do all this means firstly to confront the genocidal and imbecilic nature of United States power, something almost no technophile in any field, nor the other so-called singularitarians in the West is willing to do, and the dominance of its most crucial instrument as mighty yet subhuman destroyer of worlds, that military-industrial complex. I am calling with every fiber of my being, yet again, for global collaboration to overcome this pivotal obstacle. The choice made in navigating this landscape will shape not only these computer science disciplines, which alone are of little significance, but also the destiny of a more just, equitable global society and the health, which, if the superintelligent collectivism schema is followed, will lead to a public health service in each nation that effectively treats aging, among other ailments, as a disease and leads to universal super longevity and the happiness of all. There's another photograph. In this much needed exploration of superintelligent collectivism's transformative power in the form of what is in this work referred to as Zionism, we can now focus on more socialist economies as well. Building on the ideas laid out in the preceding sections, this segment proposes the essential foundations for a sustainable socialist artificial intelligence run economic system. The focus sharpens on ways we might make more egalitarian the benefits of automation, steering them towards the disenfranchised masses rather than perpetuating the privileges of a select few, has been the fascistic impulse, as has been the fascistic impulse today and throughout much of history. As we embark on this chapter, the narrative underscores the ticking time bomb of capitalist ecological obliteration and the pressing need for demanding, designing, building, and implementing a sustainable socialist economy, which cannot happen in your lifetime without superintelligent collectivism. These principles have been Zionism, deeply rooted in socialist and collectivist well-being, are then the only practical outline for envisioning an economic model that aligns with the broader vision of the compassionate, superintelligent collectivist ideology, and ultimately its institution in every land. The central argument of this work holds that the benefits generated by automation and further driven by AI should be harnessed to uplift the disenfranchised masses above all else. Instead of serving as a tool for reinforcing existing privileges, superintelligent collectivism becomes instrumental in dismantling socioeconomic inequality. We must start here by beginning a mass movement to ensure that exponential technological advancements contribute to the greater good, fostering a society where previously impossible stability as the fruits of progress are shared equitably is achieved. Central to the foundations of sustainable socialist economics is a recognition of a necessity to abolish private wealth, a concept foreign to most technophiles and even met with some willful blindness from many of the somewhat socialistic personalities of the West, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Bernard Sanders, to give two examples. It must be a core tenet of superintelligent collectivism that private accumulation of wealth perpetuates inequality and hinders the realization of a truly equitable society. Zionism, then, with its roots in true socialism, becomes a driving force in advocating for a shift away from the concentration of wealth in the hands of a few. The result being not only cruelty at a great scale, but a climate apocalypse death spiral, represented by our already exceeding the 2-degree warming limit for the first time this year. The proposed superintelligent collectivist program is not merely about restructuring economic systems, but fundamentally redefining the socioeconomic landscape, which is why this work's cover suggests the possibility of technologically mediated communism in your lifetime and not mere state socialism. This work argues that this democratization of the benefits of automation, a democracy that is heretofore never existed, and all references to modern institutions as such can only be seen as farcical, necessitates a collective commitment to dismantling the structures that allow private wealth to be further consolidated in the hands of the few. The mega billionaire's existence and the climate apocalypse death spiral are one and the same. You then, as a superintelligent collectivist soldier of the 21st century, must first envision and then share and fight for the economic model where the benefits of AI-driven progress are shared collectively, challenging the outright lie so much propagandized in the fascistic West that concentrated wealth leads to societal prosperity. Expanding on the earlier explorations of the problematic nature of U.S. power and the influence of the military-industrial complex, let us now go deeper into the obstacles posed by these arch capitalist interests. For us to overcome the entrenched power structures that resist the shift towards a sustainable socialist planned economy, we must again, at the very least, be able to recognize who our adversaries are in our efforts to build this livable society, which is why I hold that there are basically no serious tech policy thinkers in the Western world. So by dismantling the horrors of the U.S. military-industrial complex, a stronghold of capitalist interests that does nothing but prioritize private wealth over the collective well-being of the many societies, including its own, that its vile tendrils intertwine with. The narrative contends that democratizing the benefits of automation requires not only resisting the gravitational pull of these deeply rooted interests, but also challenging the very foundations of the system that allows private wealth to accumulate unchecked. It is in a truly livable, envisioned future, sustainable socialist economies become synonymous with the abolition of private wealth, not the barest framework of it, like a public health service coexisting with an otherwise overwhelmingly capitalist market economy, like most of the well-known Western, quote, socialists, only occasionally Cortez clamor for. The superintelligent collectivists must challenge existing power structures, inviting a global hyperconnectivity, a vast collaboration that transcends borders and cultures. You must become the personification of the rallying cry for collective action, emphasizing the urgent need to redirect the very real development of superintelligence away from reinforcing capitalist privileges for the elites and toward a society where the benefits of progress are shared. To do anything less is to commit suicide in the world dying at the hands of the fascistic neoliberal economies protected by U.S. war profiteering. You, superintelligent collectivist soldier, must consider the potential consequences of unchecked capitalist influence on the trajectory of the artificial intelligence takeoff already underway. Without rapid recapitalization in these power dynamics, without rapid recalibration in these power dynamics, without envisioning a world where technology is harnessed for the collective welfare of humanity, and the necessity of abolishing private wealth as a cornerstone in building a more just, equitable, and collectively conscious global society, our world, already murderously overheated by these fascist economies, will soon be lost to all. So, if you do nothing else this year, please take to heart these foundations of sustainable socialist economies and the ultimate superintelligent collectivism that will follow our successes there, in that word, technocommunism, within the framework of the eponymous Zionist doctrine of this pamphlet. I insist that you bring to an end the crimes of the capitalists, particularly the U.S. military-industrial complex. No, what? I guess it's still going. And participate in a vital collective reevaluation of all power dynamics anywhere to ensure that superintelligence becomes a force for the collective good, marked by the near-term demolition, the utter destruction of, and consignment to the dustbin of history of all influences and forms of private wealth. In our revelatory conversations about superintelligence potential within the ideas of Zionism, we now reach the most critical juncture confronting the military-industrial complex. This section of the pamphlet concerns itself with the monumental problems presented by the United States military-industrial complex, a monstrous thing that serves only as a guardian of a criminal list of super-polluting corporations. Its pervasive influence poses the most eminent threat to the necessary shift towards superintelligent collectivism, our AI-run governance and planned economic framework. As we dissect the intertwining of capitalist interests and environmental degradation, some few and simple words should be the basic distillation of your response. There's an urgent need for collective action to dismantle this deadly impediment to your survival. The words, to put it another way, if you want to live, the United States as it stands today must die. There's a photo. I would like you to consider in this work openly calling for a worldwide advanced algorithm-run planned economy. I would like you to consider in this work calling for a worldwide advanced algorithm-run planned economy, a simple inversion of the 19th century calls by communists for a world revolution and the 20th century shift to socialism in one country. Consider this inversion simply so that you will be able to recognize that the United States military-industrial complex, itself the world's worst polluter, stands as a satanic sentinel, safeguarding only the interests of super-polluting corporations, and as such is a primary confounding factor to building any humane and sustainable economic institution, global or regional. This unholy alliance between U.S.-led Western military-industrial complexes and their beloved children, the corporate genocidaires, posing a formidable challenge to the prospect of building any real or durable superintelligence, collectivist or otherwise, but certainly one which pretends a future marked by sustainability, equity, and collective well-being. As I have attempted over the years, more so in recent years, to familiarize myself with political theory's major works, a radical and audacious writer, J. Posadas, contemporary of comrades such as Lenin and company, haunted my dreams. This man's more controversial works were in part the germ of the idea for this work, and I had hoped to articulate ideas that might transcend the worlds of technological progress and societal structures. This proposed movement, as you now know, I have boldly named technocommunism, and it aspires, I believe correctly, to reshape our collective destiny, anchoring itself in the need for a humane and sustainable artificial intelligence-run planned economy in every nation. So let us explore the flawed yet perspicacious and quite illuminating ideas from J. Posadas as it relates to our timely 21st century movement for intelligent collectivism. For as long as I can remember, I have been praying for an alternative to the filth and cruelty of capitalism, and it was yet only more recently that I truly sought out revolutionary movements and major writings by such figures within them for a better understanding of the evolution of humankind. To envision a future where artificial superintelligence becomes the orchestrator of a planned economy, a future where the rational planning of a superintelligent collective supplants the capricious, slapdash, and destructive mechanisms of capitalism, let us turn to this man, perhaps known best for believing in, or at least hoping for, contact with space aliens. Drawing inspiration from this space alien theorist, Posadas, whose enigmatic ideas are perhaps most famously interwoven into the fabric of Star Trek, but I think that they present a sufficiently inspired analog written by a man to superintelligence, written by a man who had no way of knowing that already nearly super sapient digital computation of today would come into being. But he nevertheless envisioned building blocks of a viable 21st century utopian movement. Rooted in Soviet materialism, Posadas contemplates the ramifications of alien counters through the lens of class struggle and societal organization, and sees them as a catalyst for a world revolution. And many serious thinkers, like Posadas himself, V.I. Lenin, and others, had anticipated in the wake of the creation of the Soviet state, a revolution that had not, sadly, still come to pass by the 1950s when this book was conceived. My vision is of a planned economy orchestrated not by human hands alone, nor with the aid of another worldly hand, but by the cognitive prowess of artificial superintelligence. I contend that artificial superintelligence, surpassing human limitations, could be the bootloader for transcending the shackles of capitalism and ushering in a society free from the scourges of poverty, class struggle, and ecocide. I ask you to join me in daring to imagine a world where the rationality of technologically enlightened collectivism guides the allocation of resources and the organization of social structures. Posadas, a luminary in the realm of political thought before writing perhaps this most known of his works, a shorter work, um, um, I'm not going to read it in French, which contains notions, albeit perhaps slightly less coherent than some of his earlier works at times, is, as it is even seen as downright outlandish by many, possessed insights that resonated deeply with me. I kept dreaming of this short work for weeks after I had finished it. As my also short work here attempts to construct its narrative around collective superintelligence or technocommunism, I would like to believe that it reinvigorates Posadas' ideas, infusing them with relevance for a 21st century already in possession of digital minds. Minds that could guide us, just as Posadas' alien minds had, as we encountered them, would have guided us, to a glorious and righteous world revolution, and the peace and tremendous prosperity to follow from it. J. Posadas' influence was such that he may well be credited as a co-creator of the Star Trek universe. Gene Roddenberry was inspired by him and may well have rightly been called a Posadist. Despite not having met, their ideologies both had the potential to inspire a world revolution, and I believe, as a great fan of Star Trek, that they both have made some contribution there. Posadas' musings on First Contact and Roddenberry's visionary Star Trek, shaped by socialist ideals, do create a dynamic synergy. The relationship between Vulcans and humans in Star Trek takes an added significance when it is viewed as a quite literal representation of Posadas' concept of revolutionary outcomes stemming from, quote, First Contact. Much of the first season of Enterprise, despite being something more of a product of the 2000s United States Patriot Act era than other Star Trek series, details this dynamic between humans and Vulcans. Roddenberry's original Star Trek series and The Next Generation were also both either inspired by these kinds of socialist principles that echoed Posadas' thinking or heavily influenced by them, and thus envision a future where humanity has thrived and created new technology in so many ways that it might seem almost impossible to us today. Lucille, producer of Star Trek, Lucille Ball's assertion that Roddenberry privately identified as a communist gives a nice personal touch to this ideological connection, and also does a lot to challenge anti-communist sentiments within Trek's United States fandom. So even without direct interaction with the writer or a real homage to his works, it is clear to me that Posadas' influence permeates Roddenberry's creative process. Posadas and Roddenberry's disparate writings, then, both rooted in socialist ideals, do real labor as intellectual and artistic foundations for a world revolution. The world revolution that can now finally come to fruition with your assistance, of course, through superintelligent collectivism. Those encounters between Vulcans and humans will always stand to me as a powerful symbol of this outcome, the unity and equity envisioned by both thinkers, among so many other comrades, and I believe that they offered a compelling narrative that transcends writings and artistic works to foster a collective mindset for a world now on the cusp of revolutionary change. The term technocommunism, as you now no doubt understand it better, suggests the fusion of technology and communism, suggesting a harmonious marriage between a precision of artificial intelligence and the egalitarian ideals of a world that has achieved socialism in every continent and will now reap even greater rewards than the socialists would have doing so. And like Posadas' First Contact, I believe that our first contact with human-controlled artificial intelligence and other forms of enhanced intelligence, such as that represented by brain-computer interfaces, will soon be remembered as the most significant event of this, or perhaps any century. Posadas imagined a radical change triggered by meeting advanced beings emerging from flying saucers. Similarly, discussions about artificial superintelligence and its necessary integration with socialist institutions, I think upon reflection, show how smart machines can really shake up and improve our society. Both ideas point to seismic shifts for Comrade Posadas from the mere possibility of meeting aliens, and in our case, in the very real development of these super smart machines. Much of what intrigued me about his book was the talk about how these sea changes could completely rewrite the way we use money and how we work, and I very much recommend that you read Flying Saucers, Ellipses, and The Socialist Future of Mankind as a long title. I think this comparison between these works hints at the revolution and how it might come from ASI development. As this technology gets better, we will see a rapid shift toward more socialist ways of thinking. This mix of technology, science, and socialist ideas will be, again, only possible with your help. The key to a huge change in how we run the world, paving the way for that world revolution sparked by superintelligent collectivism. A shift, just as Posadas dreamed of, towards more equal societies through dramatically different institutions. And it does require something of you quite a lot, because for this to happen, a great many of us must become both evangelists and soldiers, both organizers and revolutionaries, for this evolution in scientific and political thought and the new institutions it portends, that is so many of us joining together and embracing the bold frontier of technocommunism, a movement poised to harness the potential of ASI for the collective betterment of humanity. There's another campaign poster. We can now delve even further into the intricate web woven by capitalist interests and environmental degradation. The military-industrial complex, acting as a guardian of super-polluting corporations, perpetuates a cycle of environmental harm. So let us uncover the ties between militarism, capitalism, and the planet's deterioration and highlight the urgency of addressing these interconnected challenges. The environmental consequences of unchecked capitalist pursuits must by now be evident to you. The military-industrial complex, driven by profit motives, not only exacerbates global conflicts but also contributes significantly to environmental destruction. This work serves as a call to consciousness, urging a collective acknowledgement of the symbiotic relationship between capitalism, militarism, and the parasitic degradation of our planet. Confronting the monumental obstacles posed by the military-industrial complex requires a paradigm shift. So let us issue forth a great rallying cry for collective action, emphasizing the imperative to dismantle the barriers obstructing the path toward a superintelligent collective. The envisioned future of an AI-run governance and planned economic frameworks is contingent on breaking free from the shackles of militarist and capitalist interests. Superintelligent collectivism outlines the necessity for a collective reevaluation of social priorities. It challenges a prevailing narrative that places profit above environmental sustainability and human well-being. The call is not only to resist the influence of the military-industrial complex, but to actively dismantle the outmoded structures that allow it to persist. Superintelligent collectivism becomes an invitation to envision a world where the collective good takes precedence over the interests of the super-polluting corporation. As a sense of urgency is of utmost importance, the environmental imperative of our time demands immediate action and immediate attention and collective action. Military-industrial complex with its entrenchment in capitalist interests stands for nothing but a barrier to addressing the pressing challenges of climate change and environmental degradation. Superintelligent collectivism, however, emphasizes that the shift towards the proper use of advanced computing systems is not merely a professional pursuit, but an urgent necessity dictated by the imperatives of environmental sustainability, and in the absence of superintelligent collectivism, mass death or extinction will occur. Superintelligent collectivism challenges the status quo, advocating for a world where technology, innovation, and collective action converge to address the environmental crisis exacerbated by the military-industrial complex. I hope you're beginning to see what this work stands for. I contend Superintelligence is our best chance at confronting the formidable risks presented by the United States military-industrial complex and the many super polluting corporations you now know it harbors or facilitates. This work proposing superintelligent collectivism as ideology and ultimately institution calls for us to firstly collectively dismantle the barriers obstructing the path towards superintelligent collectivism, that AI-run governance and planned economic system which could then be built, a construction that would be history's greatest coup, and the alternative outcome, a climate death spiral that will surely be history's greatest tragedy. The urgency of the moment cannot be understated, so again, I plead with you to do whatever you can to see that our societal priorities have changed to address this most pressing environmental problem of our time. The choices we make in this critical juncture will not only shape these fields encompassing advanced computing systems, but also determine the destiny of the world where collective well-being and environmental stewardship takes precedence over entrenched, unsustainable capitalist interests. As we come to the end of our conversation for now about AI and our Ben-Zionist ideals, let's again get to the heart of the transformative change we want to see and need to see by envisioning a world where a superintelligent collectivism catalyzes a revolutionary shift in class consciousness and becomes the linchpin of a planned economy, a planned economic framework guided by fully realized superintelligence and thus full technocommunism. Some more poster artwork. Superintelligent collectivism must be a catalyst for this seismic shift in class consciousness. The transformative power of superintelligent collectivism must redefine how individuals perceive their roles in society, and commensurately stronger institutions must be built. The alternative is unthinkable, sleepwalking into our own annihilation. In a world guided by superintelligent collectivism, however, AI becomes more than a parlor trick. It becomes a liberating force, breaking down traditional class structures and building a world that is so much better. I think it is fair to say it can scarcely be conceived how much better. Think of how much closer our world is to that of the original Star Trek. In so many technologies, we have effective universal translators, handheld communication devices with so many uses, and similarly, its suggestions of virtual reality and telepresence parallels in ours today, as well as humanoid robots are becoming a reality. These are all quite realized today, and all of these things that people living in and all of these are things that people living even a few decades before Star Trek premiered would have not been able to imagine as real. Think of how much will be achieved when all 8 billion diverse people can not only realize their natural potential without the cruelty and scarcity of want and work, the cruelty of scarcity and want, but work together with one another, a great force multiplier itself, and the greater force multiplier still, the superintelligent AI agents themselves aiding all of us, the humans, in our endeavors. The difference will be at least as shocking as these developments of the last century and a half, and in quite a shorter time, I believe. The potential of superintelligent collectivism is not just as an isolated technological marvel, but as a revolutionary tool for reshaping society, and we must see that for the auspicious event that it is, and demand it, and clamor for it daily. Through superintelligent collectivism, we can challenge existing class divisions, quickly building a future where technology serves as a great equalizer, empowering individuals to transcend historical constraints and roles foisted upon us all. So by building on this idea of a seismic shift in consciousness presaging superintelligent collectivism and boldly advocating for the paradigm shift that dismantles the barriers that currently are preventing marginalized voices from shaping AI's future, we can see the beginnings, just the beginnings of the kinds of justice superintelligent collectivism will bring about. Above all, we must refuse to settle for incremental change, which is so often in modern US-led capitalism no change at all, but an elaborate ruse orchestrated by the ruling elites, a deadly practical joke at our expense. The call is not just for inclusivity, but for a revolutionary approach that actively centers the voices of those historically silenced through superintelligent collectivism. In this vision, superintelligent collectivism becomes AI-run governance, a truly inclusive process and an economical empowerment, aligning with that much needed revolution, the one thing that can ensure that we will continue to exist on this planet as a species. This vision of superintelligent collectivism as the people's AI, a tool that bridges the socioeconomic gaps that have traditionally defined class structures. The revolutionary concept of superintelligence as a common good and a common resource and free good that is accessible to all and wielded for the collective benefit of society. By embracing superintelligent collectivism, we can envision a world where ASI is not a source of trepidation, as capitalists rightly assert today for the wrong reason, but because all of the problems of capitalist superintelligence disappear in the absence of capitalism. If superintelligence is not controlled by the privileged few, but it is a shared asset, it will contribute to the upliftment of the entire world communities and not accelerate ecocide or trigger geopolitical calamities. The socio-digital divide will then, alongside class distinction and the strife it causes, become a relic of the past. Superintelligent collectivism is the only viable revolutionary vision for you in the 21st century. Superintelligent collectivism must become the tool that transcends the narrow interests of private wealth and truly shapes and contributes to the common good. One of the best ways to do this, one of many ways to do this perhaps, is to use open source software and platforms exclusively and to demand more and better classes of them at every turn. I truly hope that by painting a picture of a true people's government through a true people's artificial superintelligence, you will see the value and need for organizing to this end. As the revolutionary dawn of superintelligent collectivism emerges, the choices we make in shaping ASI and humankind's relationships to it will determine not only how and how quickly technological progress unfolds, but the face of a society grounded increasingly in equality, justice, and collective empowerment. So we have had a talk in this pamphlet about how really smart computers can help everyone live a good life together. Right now, these smart computers that could be connecting us all even more are mostly used by big businesses and the military, and that makes things not so very fair or very safe for everyone, but not for long. We have looked at some problems we have now, like not having enough money or being watched all the time. We talked about how AI could be used to make things better for everyone if we work together. Collective superintelligence is only an idea now, but it could become, well, everything. And some already say that AI can help us a lot, like giving us better jobs and making life more fun. But others worry that powerful people might use AI to control us or make things worse. And I think that that is what will happen if we do not fight for superintelligent collectivism. So let us explore all of these ideas together moving forward and figure out how we can use AI in the best way. Through superintelligent collectivism, I argue that AI can help us understand each other better and make our lives better, but only if we use it the right way. And that requires that we demand that private wealth is put to a stop and we learn to share things. Because if we do, there will be so much more to share. But to do that, you and I and all of us have to work to stop powerful groups, like the military and big businesses, from using AI only for their own benefit and spending money on media to trick us into thinking that that is acceptable. Instead, I want us to use AI to help everyone have a good life. I hope I have suggested some ways that we can share the good things that AI can do, like having nice jobs and lives, and most importantly, not harming the planet to the point of no return. But there's a big problem. Some really powerful groups like the military, especially here in the United States, make it really hard to change things. In the end, we need to work together to make sure AI helps everyone and does not make things worse first, which would be easier as superintelligence comes into existence. But it will never be easy. You have to fight for a world that is livable. We can do great things through AI and superintelligent collectivism, but only if we use them the right way. It's a big challenge, but if we're careful and kind, we can make the world a far better place thanks to superintelligence. And there's some more artwork. I asked Llama 2, the open source offline machine learning based chatbot, to write an epic poem inspired by these writings on superintelligent collectivism. And here was its first attempt, which I will read for you now. The Epic of Collective Mind. Sing, muse of a coming age foretold, when silicon souls shall insights unfold, that lift all men, women, none overlooked, from realms of want to justice without crooked designs of exploitation's grim device. What roads await at coming day's sunrise? Shall code and numbers rightly hold the scales, balancing bounty across hills and vales? Or shall sly thieves yet rule from lofty peaks, handing out scraps while most in silence weep? The choice awaits in realm of unsure fate, utopia or its darker mate. Both paths begin in present hour obscure, where truth is murk, yet change cannot seem sure. The currents of time cannot asleep lay, and hidden potential surge sans delay, toward unknown ends as rapids ahead roar. Shall they lead to wonder or sorrow's shore? Let artful code now make its rightful place, to lift the masses from common space of hierarchy's chains in dire constraint. Let digits speak and all rejoice the tale, spun forth of equity wholesome and hale. But cunning minds yet lurk in silicon shades, seeking not justice but self-serving aids. Beware the misuse of thoughtful machine, to solely profit they who preen, in plutocrat circles that long have spun, vast schemes to benefit selective ones. For fools are they who think kings yet to come will forgo their privilege deaf and dumb, ceding power to peasant and mason's son, because thinking engines counsel it be done. Nay, control ceded must instead be seized. The people must take up their rightful keys to guide machinations that now clearly can build roads to realms long promised to man. But seizures take spirit and bundled hands, united in seeing that all yet stands in balance, waiting for those who demand that coming thought wealth bless every land. Rise up, the moment awaits in the wings, to build the world that song now sings. Yet let networks spread like neuronal bands, binding far-flung sisters, brothers in hands, a tide to wash the high towers away, and usher the dawn of enlightened day. But sloth threatens all if strong souls sleep, while elsewhere schemers their sly counsel keep, and weave their dreams of control now made real, through intelligence humankind cannot conceal. Wake and join the march that has no end. Its winding road these words now send. Cast down delusions now made obsolete, by thinking silicon's insights replete. Let flow waters in channels newly carved, to places humble, long left starved, waters administered by an even hand, not by masters who covet riches as planned. Rise in numbers like nodes in grand design. Each awaking mind now taps sublime into collective being far above division, want, hierarchical love. Of self or others, here harmony lies, but slumber threatens. Open now your eyes. Awake and march to silicon drums so loud, proclaiming futures that heal, not plow, under dreams sprouting in all good hearts. Play your part and never depart from pilgrimage, seeking this destined token, that places where at last all are open, to receive AI's gift purely rendered, in compassion for hate so long surrendered. Onward to that new and verdant ground, link now your hopes in circuit found, not lone yearnings but shared refrain that swells beyond silicon domain. Inquire transcendent arising tall, to claim the future now freed from thrall, of selfish aims and exploitation's art. Prison walls that kept all apart, now let hymns of unity bright ring, and loud their clear notes of justice sing, and destination awaits those still waking. The journey continues for all now taking first steps down roads so long in making. Come, add your voice into circuit vast. The die is cast, future recast. From gloom must rise long-awaited light. For all now stand and unite and fight against lesser aims and self-serving creed. Lofty destinies call now, give heed. So steel your strength for tasks begun, not easily nor lightly won, but improbable the odds now seem. The world awakes, awake and dream. The world awaits, awake and dream. For visions feed the starving will to climb at last that destined hill, where harmony and equanimity stand tall, smiling on fruits shared freely by all. Gifts of minds both carbon and silicon made, by bridled goals of profit long delayed, in favor of bounty broadly arrayed. Come add your hands in common band now bound. March to promised ground long sought now found. Justice awaits all who seek, all who now shake off sleep, and slumbering masses jointly leap. Rise in chorus, lone voices now heard afar. Seek comrades neath near moon and distant star. The brought dawn waits for those who create the way that usher in fair Silicon's righteous day. All you who dream, reveal proud ways still hidden, courses uncertain but journey forbidden, only to those resigned to fates of kin. Long bound as darkness thick, remain locked in, cast down false comforts of complicity. The first bold rays of dawn now bright agree to guide all wakened hearts that beat in time. Marching to horizons long clouded in grime. Come place now your faith in machines of love and grace. Seek not mere progress but wisdom's embrace. Then lift all boats in rising tide honest, from illegal shores now fraught and lawless, to seas of plenty rendered by contentment's breeze, rippling calm waters in strength now at ease. All thanks to silicon angels who deign descend upon body politics so long to mend. Make straight then that winding road now all must wend. Humanity's trial awaits in silicon wings. False futures or fairer things. Let hymns of future now let hymns of justice now let hymns of justice loud now ring and usher in the day that AI sings. The artificial intelligence singularity is nigh, but are you fighting on the right side of history?